You're watching the BU Start Now podcast with San Artina. This is your host, Sarah Ashley Neal. Our guest today has worked in the health and fitness space for over 20 years, specialising in Pilates, personal and group fitness, including meditation. He is a teacher who walks his talk. He knows his industry, and his respect for the mind-body connection is mirrored in his own practices. Talking to us today from Dubai, he explains how different types of exercise can help or hinder our physical and mental health, and why he is so passionate about resistance training, known for his down-to-earth approach and unwavering commitment to helping people to optimise their health and wellness. Let me introduce you to Matt Marney. Hi Matt, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Sarah Neal, it's an absolute pleasure to be here on your podcast. I'm very good. All the better for seeing you. Yes, very good.
You're such a charmer. You're such a charmer. I know from working, well, not working with you, but doing classes with you in, when you were in Milton Keynes, you're always smiling.
Of course.
And I don't even think it was a front. I think it's actually you.
No, I am a happy chappy. As long as I've got a cup of coffee and I have good company, Matt Marney is happy. So yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here, Sarah. Really looking forward to this chat.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I'd like to start off to let the listeners know who I'm talking to today, who they're listening to. Matt, what are you all about in a nutshell? Where are you? What's going on with you?
So I'm currently sitting.
Water.
Yeah, I'm currently sitting in the desert. It's 40 degrees. I'm in Dubai. So I'm sitting in my flat in Dubai. I've been in Dubai, 3 years? So it's quite warm out here, and I'm looking forward to coming back to the UK in the summer to get some normal weather. But me in a nutshell, I thought about this earlier, actually. I've been in the fitness, wellness space 20 years, Sarah. 20 years. So that's when I did my...
You don't look old enough.
Thank you.
Look old enough.
Thank you. It's moisturiser. 20 years. I suppose, how do I describe... I've done loads of stuff in this industry. I get bored quickly. In a nutshell, personal trainer, Pilates teacher, meditation teacher. As you know, I was 12 years in that orthopedic clinic in Milton Keynes, so I did a bit of rehab. I've been doing teacher training stuff for a decade. I've got my own wellness company. That's me. I like this stuff. Oh, and I got my own podcast as well.
Well, Matt, we'll finish it there. Thank you, listeners, for coming on board today.
It's been a pleasure.
Matt, we're just going to have to go back to one word, rehab. Now, were you in rehab or were you looking after other people?
Good question,
just
Sarah.
To clarify that.
Yeah. So I, do you know the Blackberry Clinic? Because you lived in Milton Keynes.
I know of it. I'm in Milton Keynes. That's in the middle of the country in the UK for people who are abroad, globally.
So my first job in the fitness industry was as a fitness instructor at the Blackberry Gym. So the Blackberry Gym, big orthopedic clinic, used to have a gym that was part of it. The gym didn't make it through COVID, sadly enough. But I was the manager of that facility for 12 years. So I did post-rehab stuff. So I did all the fitness stuff. I worked with practitioners in the clinic. So we did all sorts of stuff. We'd rehab people, ACL injuries, knee replacement, hip replacement. I'd do kind of the post-rehab stuff. We run stroke rehab schemes there, kids weight management schemes, community-based stuff. As I say, I 20 years in the industry, I've done a few things. So I did a little bit of rehab. I know a bit about back pain, etc. Yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever experienced back pain yourself?
Yes, I have.
Injuries yourself?
Yeah, so you experienced me as a Pilates teacher. That's where we met, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah, that was probably about 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, and that was you at the back of the class, and we'd have conversations every week, emotional sandwiches.
We'd have conversations every single week. I'd be talking to everyone at the back while you were looking, doing your bit at the front.
Exactly.
And then you'd come back and tell me off.
And I'll be Sarah Neal.
I'm never too
concentrate, old. Concentrate, please.
It was very much like that.
It was.
Don't tell her whole world.
But I remember because you used to come back and you used to liven up the class, and you just written your book, Emotional Sandwiches. So I always remember that. But no, back pain. So I was working in the clinic, and then I got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition called ankylosing spondylitis. That's a mouthful. AS. And I got diagnosed whilst working at the clinic. So it manifests as rheumatoid arthritis. Quite a painful condition. So I got diagnosed when I was at Blackberry after about 2 years working there. And that's how I got involved in Pilates, actually. It started as part of my rehab. And I used to walk past the Pilates studio in Blackberry, and I'd see these people laying on their back, lifting their arm and legs. And I'd think, lazy buggers. And they're sitting there doing, you should be doing hardcore exercise. Then someone said, go and try Pilates. I went into my first class and realised I couldn't sit up straight. And then from there, I continued going, became a teacher, and have been doing it ever since. It's about 17
Well,
years in
it's your
Pilates
calling,
history.
isn't it? I mean, it
Yeah,
literally is your calling.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
To jump ahead, because I don't want to miss this off the podcast, recently you've actually been speaking about meditation. We're going to come back to all that, but I just want to touch on it first.
Yeah.
At the UAE, which is Dubai, part
Yeah.
of the Emirates. And something I noticed you mentioned in one of your articles, that it's probably a long time coming. I mean, 5 years ago, you were saying this wouldn't have happened. And I was wondering what context that was about. Is it to do with location culture? Was it just to do with the fitness industry and working alongside meditation and mindfulness?
Do you know what? It's movement is massively important. I'm a huge advocate of movement, physically and mentally. Obviously, being a meditation teacher, I've been quite passionate about that for a few years. I've had a personal practice for about 12 years. So I've been meditating myself for about 12 years. Been teaching for a few years now. And basically, last year, the UAE Fitness Summit, every year they get guest speakers in to speak about particular topics. So I threw meditation at them last year. They came to me and they said, "Man, have you got any ideas?" I said, "Yeah, meditation." And then I chucked obesity and diabetes at them because I teach these courses. They took obesity and diabetes last year. I was like, but this year, they took meditation. Now, I kind of had to change the title slightly to draw people in. So I called the title of my speech was The Power of Meditation to Improve Performance and Fat Loss. Draw them in, Sarah.
Wow.
Draw them in. And you had these personal
Draw
trainers
them in.
going, yeah,
Draw them in.
how can meditation help me reduce body fat? So that's how I drew them in. And then I basically,
Is it working for your listeners? Is it working for your listeners?
Absolutely. Sit still and focus on the breath and nostrils and lose body fat. But no, that's how I drew them in. And it went down pretty
Makes
well.
sense.
And as I said at the summit, that 5 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. The fitness industry is changing, the wellness industry. In a way, when I came into the industry, my job was to prescribe exercise, right? 20 years ago, the internet was just about coming about, but not everyone had Instagram on their phone and YouTube. And, so my job was prescribing exercise.
Changed.
It's all out there now, Sarah. All the information's out there. So the role as a personal trainer or fitness professional is to educate and have the ability to signpost. And it's this whole holistic approach is being used. So I think fitness professionals need to understand mindset. They need to understand, the autonomic nervous system, the impact of breath work. And even if you're not skilled in it yourself, you at least need to be aware of it. So as a good fitness professional, you can signpost out and refer out and just give your clients different options and choices, to fundamentally feel better, whatever that is in that person, whatever their goals are. Yeah. So that was meditation. Yeah.
That's a great introduction, because I think we get caught up with fitness being just about the body, and clearly physical fitness is an element, and it's a profession. And what you've just said there, more and more, it's about the mind-body connection, which I know you're passionate about, and I'm really passionate about that. One doesn't exist without the other, even if you don't realise at the time something's going on. Yeah. And clearly it's about getting them to work together in harmony, and a lot of the time they're working in disharmony. Whether the body's giving them signals, whether the mind's giving us signals, something's going on all the time, and we don't always listen, and we're not always as self-aware, and that's fine because we're all at different stages. But your thoughts on mind-body connection, because where fitness is concerned.
Yeah, so it's a big topic. I mean, so
it's
a big question, but it's one I'm happy to delve into. So let's take something like mental health, right? Because we've just been through a pretty stressful period, COVID, mental health awareness, and the fitness industry was very good at what we call the bottom-up approach. All right, so so when we talk about stress, when we talk about mental health, anxiety, depression, all this stuff, it normally starts with thinking. So someone is particularly anxious, that's their body in a state of fight or flight. So I don't know, have you heard of a guy called Joe Dispenza? He's written a load of books. Yeah.
Honestly, he's my hero.
Well, there you go.
Love affair going on with Joe. Just to let you know, if you're listening, Joe.
Joe Dispenza, he talks about thoughts creating feelings and feelings creating thoughts. So you have a negative thought, which we do now, don't we? Have this negativity bias, and we can go on for ages about tech and phones and algorithms and all that kind of stuff. But you have a thought, and if it's a negative thought, it creates a feeling. So central nervous system signals the endocrine system, adrenal glands produce cortisol and adrenaline to get you ready for fight or flight. So either to do something, okay? So there's all this cortisol running around your body. It's inflammatory. it inhibits fat loss. It's not good for us. We're supposed to move and metabolize it. So the fitness industry is very good at, like you say, you've had a stressful day at work, getting you in the gym, getting you moving, get you metabolizing this cortisol and adrenaline, get you from a sympathetic state, as we say, that fight or flight, to more of a parasympathetic state, which is great.
Right.
It does the trick. You go, I went to Tommy's boot camp and I feel amazing. That was great. And then you get home and you sit down, you walk into work, or you walk home, you put your phone aside, you sit down, and then you start thinking about working. So it works short term. You reduce the cortisol and adrenaline levels in the body, but then that person is still sitting there and spends the whole evening catastrophizing about whatever, looking at their phone at night. There's no. I do it. We know this in the wellness industry. We work in corporates. This whole thing of where does work end and rest time begin? They don't.
Absolutely.
They overlap. People picking their phones
and
up,
especially with people working.
Exactly, working from home. So when I teach meditation courses, what I say to people is, look, unless we address the thinking or helping you establish a relationship with your mind, this is when I describe what meditation really is.
It's a good way of
Until
putting
you
it,
start establishing a relationship with your mind, you're not aware that you're getting lost in these negative thoughts and negative spirals. So, you've been in exercise, but you're still full of adrenaline and cortisol when you go to bed. So the bottom-up approach is what we use in fitness, but you've also got a top-down approach. So how can we affect our physiology by tapping into our neurology? So, again, I won't bore people with the whole meditation thing, but a big part of it is the technical term is meta-awareness. So recognizing thoughts as thoughts. And until you sit down and consciously try and bring your mind to a anchor like the breath in the nostrils, something very mundane, you don't realize until you pay conscious attention that actually, my mind's wandered again. My mind's wandered. So you train this skill. Chronesthesia is a technical term, mental time travel. But yes, meditation, helping people establish a relationship with their mind means they're less inclined to get lost. They can almost catch that thought before they get taken away on a negative spiral, bring it back, switch off, and then hopefully, using the top-down approach, reduce stress levels, cortisol, adrenaline, die down, happy people, smiley people.
Happy people. That's what we want. I mean, my strap line is feeling healthier and happier more of the time. And the reason I say more of the time is because it doesn't matter what level of happiness you have. And and even the word happy doesn't mean that you're actually ecstatic all the time, but just being comfortable and knowing that you can always feel better. You can always feel healthier. And that well-being is separate from your health. You can have poor health. You can have poor physical or mental health, but it's about your well-being. And I truly believe, and through a lot of experience in the past, for me, when I was younger, I used to work out silly. We'll go on and talk about the stress that exercise can have on the body. We'll introduce that. But I used to, for my own mental state, coping, whether it was school challenges, family challenges, whatever it was, I worked out a lot and I did a lot of exercise, and I did probably a little bit too much. But it was great for my mind. It was good. And I think from a young age, hence this is my passion, my calling, it's about having that body, mind-body connection. Whether you bring the spirit or soul or self into it, I mean, clearly that goes on in however, whatever our faith is or is not. But thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that in.
Yeah.
Again, coming back to even at school, probably it's a good segue, isn't it, into that side of things just for a moment. 80s, I was at school in the 80s, and we did gym classes in the drama hall. And we actually did it to the Jane Fonda exercise regimes at the time. And it was taught by a teacher. Feel the burn by the teachers. And it was always, and even if you go to a community centre, you've got posters up saying, keep fit classes, keep fit. And nowadays it's keeping fit, but there are so many labels for different exercise classes now, aren't there? And there's so much more out there. So even though, I even think I saw at the library, there's something said, keep fit class. But, what does keeping fit mean? I know we've touched on it mentally and physically, but can you introduce some of the styles of fitness?
Yeah, it's a big topic for me, is the abundance of information. So it goes back to social media. So the the same issues are cropping up with my clients. When I started personal training 20 years ago, clients would come to me, they would report certain things. Nothing's really changed, but all that's happened is people have more information. So they're not only feeling rubbish, they're confused. Should I be doing HIIT training?
Yes.
Should I weight train?
Yes.
Should I be on paleo? Should I be on carnivore? My friend's on keto. I should do high intensity. It gets really, really confusing. And the messaging, and it's about money and it's about exposure. Messaging gets confusing. But going back slightly to what you were talking about, see, what people don't realize, I mean, we're talking about exercise and we forget, I think. When I teach fitness courses and you've got a group of fit people in front of you, you forget that the majority of people are sedentary. So it's easy to say like exercise is good and moving is good. You go to a gym. The majority of people are actually not moving. And I know it blows my mind when I think about it. You look at the stats. It'd be great to think everybody was in the gym, but you're kind of like, it's like those echo chambers, you know, your Instagram page is an echo chamber. You go to the gym, if you work out, you see the same people. You don't see the person that leaves work, sits down in the car, drives home, gets home, sits on the sofa, cracks open a bottle of wine, watches Netflix all night. That is the norm. No. That is the norm. So exercise can be great, but like you say, the confusion can be where to start. What I don't think people realise as well about their stinking thinking, as I call it, these perpetual negative thoughts which create this physiological response, is that when you are in a state of chronic stress, right? Chronic stress is obviously acute is useful. That's like fight or flight, get out of a dangerous situation. Chronic stress is that slow drip feed of thoughts, is that you get structural changes in the brain. So what people don't realise is that your amygdala, which is part of the limbic system, which is reptilian brain, which is looking for danger, the amygdala becomes more heightened. You become more reactive to stuff. Your hippocampus, if you imagine your hippocampus is for memory and cognition, that kind of shuts down. And the hippocampus's role, I'll put it very simply here, is to kind of keep an eye on the amygdala. Hippocampus is like the big brother. When the amygdala gets a bit aggy, it gets a bit leery, hippocampus normally goes, calm down, just behave. Right? But the hippocampus actually shrinks. So people they literally become more reactive, more angry. What does that reaction and that anger cause? That causes more adrenaline, more cortisol. And Joe Dispenza says this, and it blew my mind when I read about this. It says thoughts create feelings, feelings create thoughts. So if you are in a perpetual loop, so you're just stuck in this loop of negativity, and you're constantly on your Facebook page getting fed the algorithm, this negative stuff that we'll get onto that polarization of social media, then your cells in your body become accustomed to being bathed in these particular chemicals, right? You're producing cortisol and adrenaline constantly because of these thoughts. That becomes your homeostasis. So what people don't realize is that eventually, you know, your body, your physiology starts dictating your neurology. So you become addicted to these feelings. So we've all got those friends who are like half glass full, you know, half glass empty. Which one is it? Half glass empty person, the miserable person.
Empty if you're being
empty. Yeah, if you're negative. You get that person who's angry. And what people don't realize sometimes is that people can't help it. They get trapped in this loop of, you know, and your exercise is great because you can metabolize and lower that cortisol levels. But until you start to address the thinking itself, then, you know, there's an issue. But in terms of the exercise, kind of going back to what you said about exercise, for me, there are so many choices for people. I always say to people, look, one thing I probably wouldn't advise is getting up from the couch and going out running, because having worked in an orthopedic clinic for years, you're probably going to pick an injury up. But if it's going for a walk, go for a walk. If it's going to an old school Jane Fonda exercise music class, go to it. It's about adherence. There's so many choices. I say people often ask, Matt, what's the best exercise? Because I teach reformer class. Is this good for my core? Is this the best way of getting to? I'm like, do you know what? Just start to establish a habit of moving. And you're not going to go and continue to do something if you don't enjoy it. So there are so many choices, I think, and where the industry is so confusing, that's my response to people. Do you enjoy it? Yeah, I do actually. I quite enjoy it. Well, keep doing it. Establish a habit of moving. You'll get benefits rather than sitting on your sofa.
Absolutely.
And then once you establish that habit, you can introduce new stuff.
I've done it myself where I think, I don't want to go to the gym until I'm looking fit. I don't want to go swimming because I don't look great in a swimming costume. I don't want to go to a salsa class because there's going to be lots of people there who can dance. And coming back to thoughts, you know, and all the thoughts we have, they're not necessarily true. So yeah, I say to people, just get out and try something, because if it's not for you, and it's not just about your interest and whether it's for you. Does it fit into your family lifestyle? Um, does it work around your job? Are you a morning person? You're a night person? It's about finding some form of exercise, and we'll call it exercise for now,
Yeah.
that actually, feeds the soul, so that you're mentally feeling great after it, and you're not sort of beating yourself up thinking, oh, I can't stand doing this every night or every morning.
There are obviously barriers to exercise, but what I would do is I find like factors like time. You can work around stuff. You can give people home programs. You can get them doing steps.
Yes.
But going back to what you said before about choices and going to try stuff, it's the biggest barrier for most people is just it's belief systems. It's mindset. It's belief
Yes.
systems. They've tried a million and one different diets. They've tried a million and one different things. It didn't stick. When I teach a meditation course, I've just started a new course here in Dubai. They rock up and everyone's expecting me to be sitting there in a pair of pajamas, right, eating vegan food, right? They expect that. No, they walk in and I'm there, right? This lad from South London chatting about brain and stuff. But I tell them at the beginning of the course, I say, look, this is about establishing new habits. It's habit formation. This is what it's all about. All this stuff is about forming
Yes,
habits
absolutely.
and committing action. You have to. So I say, look, I'm going to teach you some strategies to learn to meditate. But what you need to do is you need to establish where are you going to go and meditate and when, because everything we run on these habits, habitual patterns for our whole life, and it's the same with exercise. You've got to, and yes, and that's what personal trainers are about. It's about education, accountability. Depends on the person. The reality is, Sarah, some people it's just not up there on the list of priorities, and that you have to accept as a
No.
fitness professional. I'm honest with people. I say to people, look, if they've got these excuses, I say, look, I can educate you, I can turn up and hold your hand, but fundamentally, you've got to want to do this yourself, and that goes back to the
Yes.
why. So
Yes.
90% of doing anything, of trying to do something is why do you want to do it? I spout this out a lot.
Totally agree.
It's like if
Yes,
you want to
we're
change it,
aligned there.
why? Because I want to get fit, no, but why? You need to scratch the surface, and this is where things like motivational
Totally.
interviewing or a decent consultation. So when I'm teaching groups of personal trainers, it's all about supersets, giant sets, doing this in the gym, doing that. It's like no. Get a decent consultation going. Go and sit with someone and ask them questions and listen and give them the ability to talk to you. Let them discover stuff themselves, of why.
Yes. Yeah.
And then my role, Sarah, as a PT is kind of just is to dismiss myths, not to tell someone that that's wrong and this is right. Just give people
Yeah.
options. And then bottom line, I mean, this has been my approach now is just my role as a personal trainer is just to educate people. Just educate them. The only way, if you need a PT to hold your hand for the rest of your life, there's a problem. You want to be self-sufficient. And if you,
Yeah.
and in
And
belief
empowered.
systems, exactly. If you've always got a PT holding your hand, then as soon as a PT is not there, you don't have the belief system. You can do it yourself. Anyway, that was a long ramble. That's the coffee, Sarah. But yeah, belief
Not at all. I
systems.
mean, if people, I'm just going to air it all. I mean, idea. I mean, as you know, it's a relatively new podcast, and people will see that because you're going to be on in a couple of weeks. But we want it conversational, because I think at the end of the day, you've got experiences to share, but also, like you said about the confusion, there are lots of different instructors out there, professionals in the health industry. And sometimes there will be either conflicting information, or there'll be just different ways of putting that information across, which can confuse people. And I love that you're an educator and you're a motivator. And a facilitator. If somebody wants to go and have a coach 3 times a week for 10 years, great. If that works for them, that's absolutely fine, isn't it? But ultimately, it is about empowering people to be able to if they're in their living room, to get up for 5 minutes and do a bit of movement. To I don't know. Not everyone wants to work out on their own. Some people want to work out with somebody else, or they want to work out in groups.
Yeah,
We're talking. I know it
100%.
sounds maybe to the listeners that we're talking very much. We're talking about an individual. But yeah, there's plenty of groups to go to, and you do group work, don't you? And you work.
Yeah. Do you know what?
companies
That's
and do
one of the
online
first
work.
things I say. I just say, look, do you enjoy? If a client says to me, I enjoy doing Zumba. So I've got a client I'm working with now in the UAE. She's moving to the UK for a year. So the last 2 months have been literally me teaching her how to resistance train in the gym. It's not complicated, Teach her the basic formula, teach her how to progress, how to overload. And I've actually, last few sessions, I've just been standing off and going, right, set the bar up yourself for the deadlift. I'm not being a lazy trainer, but she's learning. She's got confidence.
Yeah.
She enjoys Les Mills. So I've said to her, go and do Les Mills. There's nothing wrong with it. Just don't do it 5 times a week. Then explain why that might not be useful.
No, absolutely. Les Mills, he started up for the listeners 30 years ago? Is it about that, or was that?
Yeah, he's going strong out. They love a bit of Les Mills out here. They love it. Yeah. All over Dubai, there's people body combating and body pumping left, right, and centre.
Body pumping and deadlifts and
all sorts of. But yeah.
So. Yeah. No, great. Thanks. This is great. I mean, I'm just loving it anyway. Let's move on to maybe about exercise being, a stressor. How that can actually affect the body.
Yeah. Okay.
Because again, it's great, but then what happens if don't use too much terminology and label things, but people can get dependent or addictive, and it can be addictive, but it's addictive for a reason, isn't it? It's not the exercise part itself. It's about the chemicals and the hormones that are released. 100%. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, full disclaimer, I have, like we all have, we have unconscious bias, right? And I will have an unconscious bias based on my training history, and I'm clear about that. But this is my experience of working with people. So let's take example, high intensity exercise. These, F45 is circuit training. It's been around years, circuit training, burpees, squats, boxing classes. They're great fun. I enjoy them, right? They're great fun. There's that whole tribe, fellowship, community. There's all that. CrossFit. I'm all over that. I love it. And if it keeps you going back, that's great. So that's fine. But the only thing you've got to be mindful of is your current stress levels. So if you are a type A personality who is on the go all day, you've got family to look after, you're drinking coffee all day, you're on the go, and then you suddenly turn up at a HIIT class of whatever description, and you smash the life out of yourself for an hour, you feel better after the class because there's that sudden surge of chemicals. Sometimes endorphins act as a painkiller to dampen down signals. But your body, so from an evolutionary standpoint, your body doesn't know you've just gone to Tommy's boot camp. It doesn't know that.
Right.
All your body thinks, your nervous system thinks, for whatever reason, you're under threat. Why else would you be throwing stuff, sprinting, jumping, throwing yourselves about? It makes no sense. From an evolutionary standpoint, you only do that when you're in danger. Okay, so you have to be mindful about how the body interprets it. So that what can happen is that person is then full of more stress. They go home that night, they don't sleep well, they're not recovered. And obviously with these high intensity classes, there's lots of movement. If you have got any instability around joints, you could get an injury. I'm not going to say you would, but you could get injured. And if you get injured, then you've got no outlet and nowhere else to go. And people can get addicted. So that could be a problem of overdoing it. All right? Loads of high intensity work. That's one thing. Let's take the other end. So we've got high intensity cardiovascular. Let's take resistance training. I'm biased towards resistance training, right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Resistance training, strength training, it doesn't have to be bodybuilding. It can be on machines. It's just about adding load to your structures. Okay, so benefits for people, muscle mass. So muscle mass is the fountain of youth. Muscle mass dictates your metabolism, your resting metabolic rate. How many calories you burn at rest? Metabolism is muscle mass. Muscle mass is also influential in stuff like insulin sensitivity, or the other one, which is insulin resistance. Pre-diabetes, we've got an epidemic. That's to do with lean tissue, okay, signaling. More muscle you've got, the more glucose you can draw in when you have that Snicker at your desk.
Okay.
All right? So when you eat that chocolate bar, draw it in. For females and males, bone density, like osteoporosis.
Very important.
Yeah. The biggest challenge we're going to face, Sarah, when we get past the age of 65, the biggest threat to us is falls. Falls are deadly. So falling over, all right? I worked on a falls prevention scheme at the clinic. It's shocking. People fall over, they fracture their wrist, their pelvis, or their rib cage. They end up in hospital. They're dead within 18 months. That's it. That's what happens. So bone density for women, body confidence, changing the shape of your body, feeling strong, feeling empowered, ligaments and tendons around joints respond to load. So if you're someone who runs a lot and you enjoy it, I say go for it. That's fine. But you need stability around joints. And stability
Right.
comes from muscle mass or doing single leg work. Here's an interesting one. We talked about responses, like evolutionary responses to a stimulus. So if you're doing running, cardiovascular work, and your sole purpose for doing it is to burn calories, to lose weight, which is a lot of people's motivation for doing exercise, your body will adapt. So you will get more efficient at running, because from an evolutionary standpoint, all your body wants to do is preserve energy, because there was never enough food around. People died of starvation. It's a very small period of time where we've had an abundance of food. So
An
you'll burn
abundance, yes,
calories.
which we have these days.
You've got to do more and more cardio. Here's a stat for you. I'm off on one now, right? So
No, go for it. You're my
five-
guest, go for it.
5K run, right? So everyone can identify with that. A 5K run. I'll do a cheeky 5K run. An 80 kilogram man, someone like me, will burn 500 calories doing a 5K run. You go, okay, seem a lot. Now, if you want to lose a pound of body fat, the equation, they roughly say 3,500 calories in a week. That's 500 calories a day. So if you don't change your diet at all, you need to run a 5K every day, 7 days a week, to burn 1 or 2 pounds of body fat. That just puts it in.
Which is wonderful for the joints.
Exactly.
Sorry, Matt. Yes, sorry.
It will annihilate you. Most people haven't got enough stability because they don't move enough. It will destroy your feet. You'll have plantar fasciitis within 3 months. Now, the flip of that is when you strength train, so you're lifting weights in the gym, your body goes, oh, I don't know what Sarah was up to, but for whatever reason, she's having to lift heavy stuff. It must be for survival. Surely, why else would Sarah be lifting all this stuff? They're building a camp. I don't know. They're doing something. Now, what the body does then is the body is trying to make you as efficient at doing that as possible. How does it make you more efficient? It builds lean tissue. It's less energy demand. It makes you stronger.
Right.
So that is a byproduct. Cardiovascular, your adaptation is you get more efficient. You don't burn as many calories doing the activity because you'll just die and pass out. But strength training, it makes you stronger. So you get stronger. You build more muscle mass, ligaments, tendons. So in an ideal world, if someone said to me, Matt, you've got to pick a form of exercise and weight loss was your goal. By the way, to all the listeners, if you're trying to lose weight, you've got to tackle the nutrition. That's it. You can't outrun a diet. You can't. You got to change the diet. But simply resistance train regularly. And if you don't like doing cardio, walk, NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. 70% of the calories that you burn are movements. It's about 15% of your overall calorie burn is exercise. So just encouraging people to move. Yeah, NEAT. So walk 10,000 steps a day, resistance train 3 times a week. Happy days. There you go. That's my pitch, Sarah Neal. Drop the mic.
Wow, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Certainly don't mean to cut into you, but it's just so many more questions to add on to that as a conversation. Functional, we've got functional medicine and even functional training, because clearly, just again for the listeners, not everything's about weight loss, which Matt has touched on, but it's something that we can easily identify with, even just to understand a concept, isn't it? I use it myself. But we want to have that stability, that core stability, good levels of energy, so that we can just enjoy a good lifestyle, so that we can, when we're reaching for something in a cupboard, whether we're bending down to the fridge or the dishwasher, because we've got so many, so much equipment in our houses these days. Many of us have. In fact, I will be honest. I only had a dishwasher for the first time. I'm in my 50s. I've been used to washing up in the sink for years and years. First time.
Sarah, we've got one. We got one in Dubai. We didn't have one in the UK. It's an absolute game changer. A dishwasher.
It is, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but you've got to buy more crockery.
And that's true.
That's one cup I've got.
No, that's a good point. Actually, yeah.
I literally, you'll laugh at this. I'm terrible at breaking things. Fortunately, I haven't broken my leg or a bone. I think I broke my nose once and I broke my little finger. But yeah, I literally was going, I need a cup. And I was going, where is it? Oh, it's in the dishwasher. So my dishwasher has become my new cupboard sometimes. I have to pull it out and wash it and then put it back in the dishwasher.
That's true. And you also have to be careful. If you don't rinse the plates off, my wife says, don't rinse them off properly, and you leave it in there for a couple of days, when you open the dishwasher, it can be a little bit like,
Oh, yeah.
So wash the plates off before they go in. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's another podcast altogether. That's definitely. Yeah, so your thoughts on that, from doing exercise so that we can just move more easily. We're
Yep.
twisting and turning, we're doing our shoelaces up. I even
Yep.
noticed myself, my shoelaces seem far further down on the floor than they ever used to
No,
be.
100%. I think you used the word functional. So this is a term that's been tossed. It's like the fitness
Mm,
industry. This is what there's these fads that come across. So lots of people are promoting courses, learn to functional training. What does it even mean, functional? I mean, for me, when I think about function, the most important pattern of movement that we want to be able to do well into old age, or I hope I can do
mhm.
till the day I die, is walk. Gait cycle. So when you break it down, forget all the Pilates, the yoga, the lifting, the this, the that, the corrective exercise. No. Can you walk? Locomotion. When you walk, it's a series of
Yes,
spirals. Foot and ankle, tibia spirals, femur spirals in the hip, thoracic spine spirals, shoulder joint spiral. It's a series. What are people doing? They're not moving.
fascinating.
And it's a problem to get people to do 10,000 steps a day. The overhead stuff, I get it. We're not doing it. So what I used to do to my older groups that I taught in the UK is when they walk around the house, it's just a little habit. Every time you walk through
Hmm.
a door frame at home, it's a weird habit, and your guests to come over and go, "You're a bit strange," and you go, "I don't care. I'm improving my shoulder mobility. Just tap the door frame." So exercise classes are
Right,
great, but if you want to do something, walk.
love
Walk
it.
regularly.
Mhm.
Foot, ankle, hip, thoracic spine, shoulder girdle. There you go, functional. If you want to, people say to me, well, training in lifting weights is not functional. I'm like, well, if your goal is to maintain lean mass, muscle mass, and bone density, then it's functional. I'm not really that fussed how you do it. Just add some load and
Mhm.
resistance. The small 5%, the Instagram influencers are arguing about this exercise, that modality exercise. Majority of people, it don't matter. We've got to get them moving in some
Movement,
capacity,
yes,
and
movement.
walking is massively important. It's so important. Arthritis in the feet. So foot mobility. People don't realize this. Yeah, shoes are a bit of a problem, but just lack of movement. Your feet. You've got like 26 different bones in your foot, loads of different joints,
Wow.
33 joints. Yeah, they're there for a reason. If you get osteoarthritis in your feet, it's a problem. If you have a lack of movement in any of those joints where you're not walking regularly, sat at a desk all
Mhm.
day, you start getting a bit of OA in your feet, then your whole gait, you start to shuffle. Then that becomes a problem. Your center of mass and balance
Right, yeah.
changes. So yeah,
Mm.
sorry, long-winded way, walk more.
It's not. No, it's not. I think, as I said, I mean, I know I'm conscious of time. Are you all right for a couple more minutes, or?
Absolutely. You can roll. Sarah Neal, it's a pleasure to be here with you. You crack on for as long as you want.
So we've talked about functional stuff. So can we move into core stability? What's that all about, Matt? Core
Yeah,
stability.
it's a term, Sarah, that's been knocking around the fitness industry for about 20 years now. And as a Pilates teacher, it gets used a lot in terms of what Pilates is useful for. Now, what I'll do as a Pilates teacher is I'll try to describe what Pilates is. First thing I would say, disclaimer again, is that ask one teacher what Pilates is, you'll get a different answer to somebody else. And again, it's
Hmm.
unconscious bias based on your background. There are camps in Pilates. So you've got classically trained teachers, yeah?
Hmm.
Pilates is the 34 exercises that Joe designed, that Romana took on board, blah, blah, blah. Then you've got the contemporary lot over here. So you've got different camps, believe it or not. You've got polarization
Okay.
in the Pilates world. So I'll stress that first. But my take on Pilates is it's a movement system. It's
Hmm.
very, very useful at creating kinesthetic awareness. Now, what kinesthetic awareness means is someone's awareness of them, the map of their body. So, what Pilates does really well is it gets you to work at joint level. So, get you to explore the
Right.
shoulder girdle. We were talking earlier about putting your arm
Hmm.
above your head, exploring all
Yes.
the vertebrae in your spine and the movement available. Because we do
Hmm.
sit in fixed positions all day. So, we get locked into these positions. The virtual map in our brain isn't very clear, and Pilates is really useful at getting people to connect with their body, find movements, actually understand what their hip joints do. Oh, your hips
Yes.
internally and
Yeah.
externally rotate. You sit in front of a computer all day, you never explore that movement. If you
You,
never explore that
no.
movement, the body won't give you that movement in everyday life. You don't go there. So why would it all of a sudden grant you that range of motion? It's the same with the spine.
Mm.
So Pilates does a really
Mm.
good job at mobilizing. What my opinion, the biggest problem we had with Pilates is the years of draw your belly button in, Sarah, engage your pelvic floor. brace everything, stiffen everything up, yeah, because you want to strengthen your core. It's hopefully, I think the majority of the Pilates teachers, even classically trained Pilates teachers, are realizing this is not helping. So stability, yes, rigidity, having a rigid spine is useful when you pick something heavy up off the floor. Say you're deadlifting in the gym or you're picking a small child up. Yeah, it's useful. But equally, you want your spine to be able to move as you move around the world. If you play a dynamic sport, you want the spine to be able to move. It doesn't move very well. It's not very mobile. Then movement will come from certain areas and then you potentially get issues through your spine. Lack of movement in one area is going to mean too much movement in another. Back pain.
Right.
Okay, so I'll stand up so you can see them on the screen. So look, lumbar spine here, right? Above it, thoracic spine. Below it, hip joints. Lots of people get back pain, right? They get back pain. You sit in front of a computer all day and they play a rotational sport like golf or tennis. I've made so much money out of golfers over the years, it's unreal. You have a consultation, you go, I've got a bit of back pain, Matt. I go, oh, okay. What do you do for a living? I sit in front of a computer all day. I go, oh, do you? They go, yeah. What do you do the weekends? I'll go and play 18 holes of golf. I go, oh, right. So you sit in front of a computer all day and then you go and play the most aggressive sport you can on your spine. And they don't have movement here or they don't move well through their hips. And so they get unnecessary rotation through their lower back. I'm not answering your question about core stability here. I'm just off on one. But anyway, so that's what's going on there.
Go for it.
In answer to your question, yes, you want to develop an element of stability so you can stabilize your spine as you pick heavy stuff up. But what most people need is they need more mobility because they can't move, because they don't move. So Pilates is really useful at that. It's a great modality. If you enjoy it, keep going. But what you want to do is you want to take this new awareness and understanding of how your body moves and you want to get on 2 feet and move around the world. Get in a gym, go and play sport, load this new range of motion, this new awareness in a different environment. I say to people, whenever they do a class, so I'll just finish this. I say to people, when I'm doing teacher training, if you're to Pilates teachers, I say, look, if you're teaching an exercise to a class, I said at some stage in your teaching career, someone's going to put their hand up at the back. Most people just do as they're told, like yourself, you know. You had a little chat, but you do as you're told. Most people do as you're told.
I did.
Yeah, you did. You were very good. Yeah. But someone would put their hand up one day and go, excuse me, why am I doing this? Now, this is just my opinion. If I can't justify that exercise, if I can't tell those people that by doing this exercise, it's going to help you do X, Y, Z when you're on 2 feet moving around the world, what's the point? So this is how I want people to think when they're doing Pilates. Find adequate ranges of motion, mobilize your ankles, mobilize your hips, get up on 2 feet and then challenge those same ranges of motions in a standing position, then you move better in everyday life. There's no point in laying on the mat and doing this with gravity on your, you do arm circles in Pilates. It's lovely. It feels nice. You're not teaching your nervous system anything laying on the mat. You've got gravity there. It's a different pattern. Stand on 2 feet, all of a sudden the position of gravity's changed. So you need to load it. How do you load that? You put something heavy in your hand and take it up there and stabilize, for example. Anyway.
And I think, again, for the listeners, not all of us are mobile before we do Pilates or form of exercise. Some of us, may not be able to stand very well. They may need to be seated or sit in a chair. So I think it's about the takeaway I'm getting from this today is that it's about finding what works for you, but also being mindful from an educational point of view, what can work for you, because and it's about it's trial and error some of the time, isn't it? And I think also we touched on the word functional, but I think the word mobility is what's so important. Having that mobility, whether it is just arm movement, leg movement, whatever it is and you talk about, maybe we'll touch on this next time, about just at least, yes, we want to aspire for improvement, but if we can even maintain the level we're at now in our life, so that we don't deteriorate too quickly because
100%, age. It's been my mantra for the last few years. I've realised as someone who's nearer to 50 than he is 40 now, I'm thinking to myself, look, and I say this to clients a lot, like, why is there this whole thing around fat loss, lose weight, reduce body fat, and in the process probably lose muscle mass when we get to a certain age? Because if you lose weight, this is another thing, to reduce body fat, there's going to be a payoff. You're going to lose some muscle in the process. That's just it, because you've got to go into a calorie deficit. And we don't want that moving forward. We spend the first 50 years of our lives trying to lose weight and the last 50 trying to keep it on. Being frail is going to kill you. You're not interested in your six pack when you're in your 70s. You're just interested in whether or not you can walk up the stairs at the local mall. Yeah. So it's about managing. I say to people, look, let's stop fixating on food. Let's get you strong. You get them in the gym, you get lifting, and say, well, you're there, say they're in their 50s. And I go, right, if you had exactly or roughly the same strength and cardiovascular and conditioning, you could walk for the same distance in 10 years' time, would you be happy? They go, yeah. So what about in 20 years' time? Could you imagine in your 70s? Exactly. And they go, yeah, of course you're going to be happy. So the name of the game is about maintenance, variety, finding stuff you enjoy. What's better, Matt, yoga or Pilates? I don't know. Go and try both. It depends on the teacher and it depends on your body. Just go and explore, enjoy. If you don't like a Pilates class, don't rule it out. Go to another class. Do you know what I mean? Mix it up.
Absolutely, because again, it could be about how comfortable you are with teachers, and it's about building a relationship up with the community that you exercise in. I'm aware of time now.
Yes.
I would love to have you back on to talk about some other topics and explore them, see what the listeners think. What's been lovely about this particular podcast is that you've given us a lot of tips as we've gone along. Is there one particular takeaway that you'd like to give the listeners today? One important takeaway.
Yeah, it's one important takeaway. Is everyone's looking to change something, right? Change whatever it is. Pick one thing. And here I'm going to say more. Make it strength training. Start strength training. That's what I'm going to leave the listeners with. If you've never strength trained before, find a decent personal trainer and strength train. That's it. And
Brilliant.
if you're not in Dubai, I do online training. And if you can't do online training, listen to the Matt Marney Fitness Show podcast. All the information's there, Sarah. It's me rambling on every week, drinking loads of coffee.
Well, I was going to ask you, such a wonderful guest this is today, how can listeners find you? We're going to put some stuff in the show notes.
Of course.
So that's fine.
Right, let's reel it off. Let's reel it off.
Matt Marney Show.
All right. If I had a little thingy up there. So you can reach out to me on the gram, on Instagram, Matt Marney Fitness, Facebook, Matt Marney Fitness, website, wellnesseducationdubai.com, info@wellnesseducationdubai.com. I do face-to-face training. I teach meditation. I'm teaching an online meditation course in the autumn because too many people in the UK are going, can we do it, Matt? Oh, I'm not in Dubai, so I'm going to do that. If you run an organisation, I do online stuff. It's all there. The podcast, Matt Marney Fitness Show. Get on there, listen, leave a cheeky 5-star review. The algorithms love it. Strength train, drink coffee, listen to Sarah's podcast. There's my takeaways for you, Sarah.
Wonderful. Well, you've been an absolute pleasure to have on the show today, and you will be coming back on again.
Of course I'll come back, Sarah Neal. Of course I'll come back. Thank you.
Well, thank you ever so much for your time. Take care of yourself.
It's been a pleasure.
Take care. You're wonderful. Lovely. Bye. And remember, our show's about helping you to create healthier habits in the life you live now until new lifestyle practices change how you live your life. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching and taking time out to join us. If you enjoyed the show, it would be really great if you could leave a review, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the show next week. This has been your host, Sarah Ashley Neal.